Appalachia is a mystical place that's inspired storytellers for centuries. These ancient hills have long been filled with mysterious terrors lurking in the forest and flying through the sky. Folks have passed down superstitions through the generations, so the stories live on today. Some believe that the area is filled with the spirits of Native Americans, while others claim it to be a nexus of paranormal activity. Whatever the case may be, the mountains are certainly a place to let your imagination fly if you can handle your fears. Whether you've come to discover cryptids or witches, glowing beings, mysterious lights, or flying monsters, you might find more than you bargained for. We've gathered some of the best regional legends right here to pique your curiosity. In 1797, when Lower Appalachia belonged to the Cherokee, the naturalist Benjamin Smith Barton wrote that, "The Cherokee tell us that when they first arrived in the country which they inhabit, they found it possessed by certain moon-eyed people who could not see in the daytime. These wretches they expelled." According to Barton, the tribe's elders had told his friend, Colonel Leonard Marbury, that when they arrived in Georgia, they discovered a nocturnal race of short, small, pale-skinned, bearded folk with big, bright blue eyes. These beings were so sensitive to light that they could only see in the dark, and they hunted and fished after sundown. Legend has it that they also built the impressive stone walls and structures on the site known as Fort Mountain. They were not, however, skilled enough to fight off the Cherokee, and one night under the light of the full moon, the invading warriors drove them out of their homes and into Tennessee or the backwoods of North Carolina, never to be seen again. John Sevier, a Tennessee governor who visited Fort Mountain in 1782, told a somewhat different tale of an ancient Cherokee chief named Okotosota, who said that the fort was built by white men from across the Great Water. Perhaps the moon-eyed people were descendants of Madoc, a Welsh prince rumored to have arrived on America's southern shores before the days of Columbus. Many colonists gave these so-called Welsh Indians credit for any sophisticated structure they found as a way to denigrate the indigenous peoples. By most accounts, the strange little cave dwellers resembled gnomes or trolls. Perhaps the colonists created a legend of their own and called it a Cherokee story to let themselves off the hook for telling tall tales. Others say that the moon-eyed people were related to a group of albinos who lived among the Kuna tribe of Panama, where they were celebrated for their skill in archery. Whenever there was a lunar eclipse, the albinos would shoot their arrows towards the sky, defending the moon against the monster, which would threaten to swallow it whole. Today, it would seem that the moon-eyed people have vanished without a trace, yet some believe that they left a sign that they might return again. In 1841, a settler named Felix Axley pulled a heavy soapstone and talc carving out of the water where the Hiwassee and Valley rivers meet. This odd 3-foot-tall statue of two conjoined figures could be an image of lovers, children, dwarves, or beings from another planet. It's thought to be older than the Cherokee, and if you visit the Historical Museum in Murphy, North Carolina, you can experience its eerie presence for yourself. The fate of the moon-eyed people may never be known, but if you find yourself alone in the woods, you may meet them there, glowing under their starlight. If you find yourself on NC 181 in autumn after dark, you might want to pull over at the Brown Mountain Overlook, where locals claim to see orbs of light rising above the mountaintops from time to time. As legend has it, these bright apparitions are the ghost torches of Cherokee maidens and mothers. On foggy fall nights, they search the hills for the spirits of lovers, brothers, and sons lost in battle with the Catawba tribe. The lights have taken on many shapes and colors, from stars to flying spheres in white or red. In the 1960s, some folks said the emanations were evidence of UFOs bringing extraterrestrials from Venus to Brown Mountain. As recently as 2016, forest rangers spoke of run-ins with glowing balls that floated over their heads. Everyone from the United States government to paranormal investigators and researchers at Appalachian University has studied the lights, which have also inspired marvelous tales of fiction from Field Trip, a 1999 episode of The X-Files. to Jules Verne's 1906 novel Master of the World. Perhaps Verne himself discovered the lights when he visited Brown Mountain in 1905, because his story features a crazed scientist who builds an airship inside his secret hideout in Table Rock, causing odd lights to emerge near its summit. When Verne's book was translated into English in 1911, residents were just starting to be fascinated by the strange happenings on Brown Mountain. On September 24, 1913, the Charlotte Daily Observer noted that Anderson Lovin, an old and reliable resident, described mysterious lights seen just above the horizon every night, red in color, appearing punctually at 7:30 p.m. and again at 10 p.m., and people were starting to talk. While this was going on, people were also discovering the wonders of electricity. The Southern Railway had installed blazing 600,000 candle power headlamps in their train engines, and automobiles were becoming a common sight on roads. In 1913, when locals asked the government to look into the Brown Mountain lights, the United States Geological Survey ended up attributing them to the trains. The investigator D.B. Sterrett found that Lovin's hotel gave a clear view of the westbound Southern Railway line, so people saw lights when the trains came through. The rest of the sightings were likely to be caused by car headlights, house lights, or brush fires. Apparently, the mystery was solved, but in July 1916, a raging flood brought travel to a halt for weeks. People began to doubt Sterrett's conclusions when the lights continued to appear in the night sky. Visitors continued to flock to the Lovin Hotel, keen to experience the enigma. In 1922, another USGS scientist, George R. Mansfield, used an Alidade telescope to plot the Brown Mountain lights on a map and prove that they appeared as the Southern Railway trains passed through. This secondary study satisfied most people, who assumed that the sight lines from the hotel created the illusion that the lights were rising from the mountain. Still, not everyone was convinced that the lights were man-made. In July 2016, the Charlotte Observer ran a story about the two officers from the Forest Service who had encountered beach ball-sized spheres of light when they were up on the mountain. These orbs drifted by and then disappeared. Later in August 2016, WLOS-TV reported that Appalachian State University researchers may have captured digital images of the Brown Mountain lights. In this footage, you can see some unidentified orbs of light rushing through the air. Perhaps ball lightning, bioluminescence, or glowing mountain gases are at the heart of the mystery, but no one can say for sure. However, locals do say that if you want to see the Brown Mountain lights for yourself, September through early November is the best time to take a drive along the Blue Ridge Parkway. On November 12, 1966, a group of gravediggers in Clendenin, West Virginia, were startled to see a slim, menacing creature with coral red eyes and silvery wings fly out of a tree. With a piercing cry, it swooped down, crossed over their heads, and disappeared into the shadows. 3 days later, 4 friends, Roger and Linda Scarberry, and Steve and Mary Millette, had a terrifying encounter as they drove past the site of an abandoned World War II munitions plant near Point Pleasant, known as the TNT area. Through the passenger side window, Linda spotted a dark creature with mesmerizing red eyes hovering by the roadside. She later told police that this frightening creature was a slender, muscular man about 7 feet tall with white wings. As the friends sped away, the creature made a screeching sound and flew after their car, chasing them back to Point Pleasant. As Roger sped down the road, it peered through the window, keeping pace with the car. When the friends reached the city limits, the car was going 100 miles an hour. The Scarberries and Millettes were shaken enough to go to the police. The Point Pleasant Register published a report with the title, "Couple Sees Man-Sized Bird, Creature, Something." And it wasn't long before the national media named the creature Moth Man, after the Batman villain Killer Moth. Mothman became a celebrity. From 1966 to 1967, the Mothman terrorized folks in Point Pleasant. A pair of volunteer firemen claimed to see a large bird with red eyes from their truck, leading some people in town to believe that the stories were silly fiction. Robert L. Smith, a wildlife biologist at West Virginia University, told reporters that the monster was likely to be a large sandhill crane with a 7-foot wingspan that became lost during its migration. the sightings continued as townspeople saw strange reflections in fields and heard odd buzzing noises coming from their television sets. Frightened reports of missing pets and teens claimed that Mothman attacked them as they sat in their parked cars trying to get in through the roof. As the legend of Mothman took hold, rumors spread that men in black were searching the hills around town for extraterrestrials. A few people suggested that Mothman was the result of a botched military experiment and that the creature lived at the military storage site near the munitions plant. Before long, Mothman had become a permanent fixture in the local folklore, and though descriptions varied, everyone agreed that the monster was a man-like bird with red glowing eyes. Things came to a head on December 15, 1967, with the collapse of Point Pleasant's Silver Bridge. 46 people died in this horrific event, and some claim to have seen the Mothman by the water, turning the bizarre character into a larger-than-life terror. After the disaster, Mothman laid low but remained infamous in town. In 1970, ufologist Gray Barker mentioned Mothman in his book The Silver Bridge, and John Keel's 1975 book The Mothman Prophecies was later adapted into a 2002 film of the same name, starring Richard Gere. Perhaps Mothman decided to change his ways because now, every third weekend of September, Point Pleasant holds a festival in his honor, and thousands of people gawk at his silvery 12-foot-tall statue that stands right by the edge of town. The Bell Witch is a story of an ancient, disturbed spirit whose tooth was lost under a house in Tennessee. When the Bell family moved into the house, she began to haunt their lives. As legend has it, in the winter of 1805, John Bell, his wife Lucy, and their children and slaves settled into a log home near the banks of the Red River. They soon cleared the land and began farming and built a good life for themselves until one afternoon in 1817, John saw a strange dog with the head of a rabbit in the cornfield. He shot the creature, but it disappeared. Later, his youngest daughter Betsy saw a pretty girl dressed in green hanging by her neck from an oak tree, but when the family came to fetch her, the girl was gone. Soon the Bell family was plagued by whispery voices, strange knocks at windows and doors, and the sounds of rats scratching and gnawing at their bedposts. Before long, they were beset by a clamor of choking and strangling, wings flapping against the ceiling, chains dragging across the floors, and dogs fighting, making the noise deafening inside the house and keeping them awake. During the night, the children would scream as some poltergeist pinched them, pulled their hair, and took away their bed covers. Yet somehow, the family could find no source for their troubles. The house seemed miraculously free from vermin, and the furniture remained undamaged. Fearing what their neighbors would think, the family kept quiet about their troubles, but eventually, John Bell told his friend James Johnston about their ordeal. James came over to help, but the spirit was too much for him, and soon word spread through the community that the Bell family was suffering, with news traveling up to Kentucky. Curious folks began visiting the farm, and the spirit, which seemed to feed off of the attention, became strong enough to speak. After introducing itself as the spirit of Kate Batts, a local woman known for her strange ways, folks began to call it the Bell Witch. The spirit became a notorious personality, known for arguing religion, singing hymns, and mocking people. It loved parlor tricks, once perfectly reciting 2 sermons in sequence that had first been delivered at noon at churches that were 13 miles apart. The spirit was also fond of Lucy Bell and declared her to be the most perfect woman living. She also liked to have long talks with John Bell Jr. and proved to be so eccentric, mercurial, and outspoken that General Andrew Jackson and his men came to meet the witch themselves. After a night of torment, the men left the farm in a hurry. Jackson was rumored to say that he would rather fight the British at New Orleans than fight the Bell Witch. For all its entertaining ways, the Bell Witch was violent and not to be trifled with. It continually harassed old Jack Bell with curses and threats, and finally poisoned him to death on December 20th, 1820, with a concoction that blazed with blue flames when it was discovered and thrown into the fire. Kate took credit, but the witch lived on, singing bawdy drinking songs at the funeral. Things settled down for a while until Betsy became engaged to her childhood sweetheart, Joshua Gardner. The witch disapproved and tormented the young woman, who broke off her engagement, married her schoolteacher, and left for Mississippi. After Betsy's marriage, the witch bid farewell to the Bells, but she promised to visit them again in 7 years. When she returned to speak to John Jr., she said that she would leave once more and return again in 1935. Some say she did, and some say she didn't, and some people say she can be found in a nearby cave from time to time. The full story has never been discovered, but many are convinced that the Bell Witch is proof that spirits wander the earth in search of peace and company. In the mountains, folks tell many tales about the Wampus Cat, which their ancestors called the Catawampus. Some say that a Cherokee myth tells of a beautiful native woman who disguised herself in the skin of a cougar to steal knowledge from the men of her tribe. As she moved past a rock, hoping to catch a glimpse of their ceremony, the men caught her in the act. The tribe's witch doctor cursed her to become a half-cat monster and banished her into the forest. From then on, she was no longer fully human and lived in the shadows. From then on, whenever a tribesman crossed her path, the creature would drive them insane with fear by staring into their souls with her glowing yellow eyes. As others tell the story, a brave Cherokee warrior named Standing Bear went alone into the forest to fight Ewa, a vicious spirit, but his weapons and magic were not enough to defeat the beast. By the time he returned to the camp, he had lost his mind. Standing Bear's wife, Running Deer, vowed to destroy Ewa herself, so the tribe's witch doctor gave her a potion for hiding her scent and a spirit mask that made her look like a cat. When Running Deer found the Ewa, she threw herself on its back, and her magic caused the creature to turn against itself. She returned to her camp victorious and became her tribe's spirit protector. Appalachians often say that the Wampus Cat is a black-furred creature that prowls the mountains at night, waiting to strike. Some say it's half dog, others say it's part bear. Many swear that it has 6 legs, screeches like a banshee in the dark, and smells like the pits of hell. No one knows for sure whether it's a mutant creature or a supernatural being. Farmers take care to keep their livestock in at night, and mothers warn their children to come home before dark. If you're in the hills of North Carolina and you find yourself standing by a statue of a Wampus Cat, you might marvel at its strength. But remember, if you value your sanity, never gaze into its eyes. As the sun dips below the rugged peaks of the Appalachian Mountains, casting long shadows through the misty valleys, one cannot help but feel the weight of centuries of lore that blankets this ancient landscape. From the eerie sightings of the Moth Man to whispers of witchcraft weaving through the dense forests, the Appalachians offer a mysterious allure that is as impenetrable as the mountain fog. But are these mountains truly cursed, or do the tales merely reflect the deep-seated fears and aspirations of those who tread their rocky paths? What is undeniable is that the legends of the Appalachians have a life of their own, breathing a mystical air into the hills and hollows that have witnessed the unfolding of America's most haunting stories. As we leave behind the whispers of the woods and the legends that lurk in the shadows, the Appalachian Mountains remain a place where the line between myth and reality blurs, inviting the bold and the curious to explore its secrets. Whether these tales are true or simply figments of vivid imaginations, they ensure that the Appalachians will continue to enchant, terrify, and intrigue generations to come.